Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me again this evening. Tonight, we're going to be talking about dreams, dream interpretation, trying to understand our dreams a little bit better. And it's something that came up from a previous live stream. Um, Sorry, I'll put this on silent. Don't want it going off. Right. It came up in a previous live stream where people had mentioned dreams and things like that. And I think dreams are a fascinating and kind of intricate kind of subject. We can learn so much from our dreams. So tonight I'm going to be looking at the dreams, what they mean to us, looking at different ways to interpret them. I'm going to be looking at what Carl Jung described as archetypes, which are really just common examples of certain things that can help us. We see them in stories, so we recognize archetypes in stories. So we have archetypes in our dreams as well in everyday life. They help us to identify and make sense of the world around us. Later on, towards the end, I'm going to ask you to do a little exercise. So if you want, you might want to get yourself a pen and paper to write some stuff down, or you might just type it out or whatever. But just to see how you get on, just to see if there's anything you find helpful, see if you can find anything illuminating. But first of all, when it comes to dreams, Carl Jung, he would have saw dreams as a valuable source of information about ourselves and about our unconscious mind. There's things go on in our dreams. They can be quite disjointed. They don't make sense. We could have recurring dreams. If it's not the same dream, it could be the same recurring theme that goes on in dreams. And there could be different reasons for this. Sometimes it can be there's something going on with us that we need to figure out, something we need to do, something we need to learn. There could be something, as Freud would have said, there's something maybe in our past that is still having an impact on the here and now. I'm sorry if I'm a little out of breath. I've just run up the stairs, by the way. And I seem to have a little bit of man flu at the moment, so I'm sorry. My throat seems a little off. But enough of my waffling. Back to the dreaming. Whenever we dream, we tend to dream in symbols, in symbolism, which is why things sometimes don't seem to make a lot of sense to us. They can be a bit disjointed, a bit fractious. We might, for instance, have a dream about somewhere we remember, like maybe school or an old place we used to work, and we can dream we're back there, but there's something different about it. Maybe the color of the walls are different, the furniture is different, the layout of the building is different. All of these things that go on in our dreams, when we start to look a bit closer at them, we start to analyze them a little, they start to make a little bit more sense. Now, I will say, before I go any further, I am not an expert in interpreting dreams, okay? It's something I've read, something I've looked into. I've had therapists help me talk through my dreams. Sometimes I've tried to do a little bit of analysis myself based on what I've learned. So I'm just going to share with you this evening what I've learned, and I hope you find it useful. So when it comes to dreams, Carl Jung would have had 12 rules for dreams. I'm not going to go through them all. I'm just going to summarize them. They are online. There's a lot of books with them, so if you want to have a look. But he believed that dreams should be treated seriously in order for our self-understanding, to get to know ourselves and learn about ourselves a bit better. And the blurriness of dreams is something that requires humility. Sometimes we will dream about something and we'll just assume, well, that's clearly what it means. We need to look sometimes a little bit closer. We don't always know everything. It might not necessarily be what we think it is at first glance. So it requires a bit of humility and openness to be able to explore the meanings of what's going on in our dreams. We also need to be a bit flexible as well. As I say, it's not always what we assume it is. For instance, we might dream about somebody. There might be somebody in our dreams, and it could be a partner, an ex-partner, somebody we work with, an old teacher. It could be anybody, just someone we know. And we'll say, I dreamt about you last night. Well, we didn't really. That person was in our dream, but that person represents part of us. So we need to be open to recognize that the things that we dream about, everything within that dream is some aspect of us. It's something to do with us. It represents a part of us. So there needs to be that kind of openness to recognize that. He also believed that dreams offer a broader understanding of our psyche. Okay, and they can reveal patterns and themes over time. Again, if we're having a recurring dream, it might not be the same thing, but could be the same kind of thing that goes on. So there's a recurring theme, and that could be something going on in our psyche, something we, if we start to peel the layers back, we'll get a bit of an understanding about ourselves. And lastly, he says that we shouldn't really downplay or dismiss our dreams because they can provide a valuable insight into ourselves, particularly when it comes to our personal growth. Now, this is the thing about dreams. If you're anything like me, you tend to forget your dream by the time you reach the bathroom. So sometimes it does maybe require us to write down as much as we can remember about the dream so that when we come back to it later on, it'll refresh our minds. We'll get a little bit of a cue to help jog our memories in order to help us to analyze them. So when it comes to dreams, again, we don't always know what's going on. They can be a bit disjointed, but people like Jung would have said that subconsciously we do know what the dreams mean. And again, I'm going to be looking at archetypes because a lot of the stuff that goes on in our dreams are maybe things we recognize on some level, and it's trying to pick apart what that actually means. The dreams, as I say, they're symbolic. Whenever we dream about something, whatever it is we're dreaming, whoever it's there, wherever it's set, whatever it is that comes up, these things represent some part of us. It's something to do with us. We're not dreaming about a thing or a person or whatever. So everything in the dream is us, and it is really trying to, if you will, pick apart what those things mean, what they represent, okay? So when it comes to archetypes, as I say, an archetype it's a common example of something. When we hear stories, even as kids, we hear fairy stories, things like that. We hear legends. We talk about mythology, some of the heroes and the villains and the monsters, the dragons, things like that. Even as kids, we understand these things because we recognize archetypes. And Jung would have talked about different kinds of archetypes. He would have talked about, and I talked about this in the previous live stream. For instance, our shadow self. Our shadow self are the parts of us that are unacceptable, not just to us, but to other people. But we need to sometimes explore our shadow self, even confront some of those things in order to get some kind of personal growth. He would have said the mother. If we see a mother in a movie, a TV show, or we hear someone even mention mother, as an archetype, the mother would represent nurturing, protection, care, things like that. The father would recognize things like authority, guidance, protection, things like that. Child would represent like innocence, potential as well. Children grow, they learn, so potential as well. So we recognize these things in stories. So even if you think of even the movies you watch nowadays, a lot of the time you get archetypes. For instance, you might get, there's the young hero. The young hero has to go off on a quest of some kind. What the hero's doing is they're embarking on some kind of journey. It might be dangerous, it might be a young person, whatever. And it's a struggle for, if you will, self-discovery, growth, and triumph, good over evil. They have to face adversity and so on like that. And the hero, quite often you would find, is maybe a young person. They're not necessarily in the middle of something. They're not where the action is, if you know what I mean. If you will, they're on the outskirts. They're growing up outside. Along the way, they might meet some kind of a mentor. And the mentor is the person who guides that young person, maybe goes with them on their quest or whatever. There's what he would call a shapeshifter. Now, a shapeshifter is someone who you never quite know if they're the good guy or the bad guy, and they sometimes move back and forward, so you can never quite figure them out. You're never sure what their motives are, who their allegiance is towards. They're unclear. Are they the traitor, or are they going to be the good guy at the end? Are they going to do the right thing? So that adds a bit of mystery and suspense. You might find the trickster, and the trickster is this person who just seems like they're funny, they're chaotic, they do silly things, but they kind of represent a kind of chaos. Okay. You'll find an older person along the way. It could be an older man, an older woman. And this is the person who maybe acts as, again, maybe like a kind of a mentor, but they have wisdom and insight. They might have skill. that perhaps they haven't practiced in a long time, but they have the skill and they want to give that skill, that wisdom, that knowledge to the younger person in order to help them on their quest. You would have someone who's maybe a little bit of a rogue, a bit like the trickster. You don't kind of know whether they're a good guy or a bad guy. They might be a bit cynical and so on. And when you think of characters like that, the young hero, the mentor, the older person who guides them, the person you don't know if they're on their right side or not, if they're on their side. You pretty much described The Lion King or Rocky or Star Wars, young Luke Skywalker, and so on. So we recognize these archetypes. We see them in stories all the time. What he would have described as another archetype would be what's known as the sacrificial hero. And this could be the person who gives up everything they have to go and do the right thing, or sometimes at the end they sacrifice themselves to save everybody else. So we all recognize these different kinds of archetypes. We see them in stories, they're in legends, they're in movies, they're in books. They're in our dreams as well, different kinds of archetypes within our dreams. So whenever we dream about something, as I say, it's some aspect of us. It's something to do with us. It's some part of us that maybe needs to be uncovered, maybe needs to be looked at, maybe needs to be held up in the light of day, if you will. So remembering that the dreams use these kind of symbolism, as I say, they can be disjointed, they can be funny, they can be terrifying. It's the thing about nightmares, scary dreams. They can bring up distress. Dreams can bring up a lot of things. They can bring up, a lot of different kinds of emotions. But our dreams can't actually harm us. They can bring up, as I say, emotional distress or mirth or whatever, but they can't actually harm us. And even people have said things, there's like a bit of an old wives' tale people talk about. Whenever, if you die in your dreams, you die in real life. Well, no, you don't. First of all, whoever told them that, who could prove that? Sometimes people do die in their dreams, and that could be represented as more the end of one thing and the beginning of something else, the start of something new. So there's different ways of looking at the different archetypes, the things that we recognize, things that are said, things that are done, and so on. So when it comes to our dreams, if you have your pen and paper, if you were to write down, I'm going to give you a moment. I'm just going to waffle on as you're writing down, by the way. If you were to write down as much as you can remember, go into as much detail, as much as you can remember. It doesn't have to be, War and Peace, even just bullet points. So you think about, who was in it, where was it set, what color were the walls, what was the furniture like, were there any clocks, ornaments, clothes that were being worn, things that were said, as much detail as you can, as much detail as you can put into it. Don't overthink it, but if you have a dream, you just write down as much as you can remember, okay? So as you're doing that, I'm just going to continue to waffle away. Going back to the archetypes, as I say, we recognize these things in movies, we recognize these things in stories. The most successful kind of stories are the ones where the archetypes tend to make sense. What we don't want is necessarily the good guy turning out to be, the horrible, nasty person at the end, ending up being the villain or whatever. Sometimes we will get the villain and they turn out to be the good guy at the end. Maybe they change their mind. But we like stories that make sense. We want a story with a good start. We want the plot. We understand what's going on. We recognize the characters, the hero, heroine, whoever it happens to be. They have to do whatever they do. They have to face adversity, and they generally triumph at the end. Again, the story doesn't make sense to us if we watch it, and no matter what their best intentions, no matter what their best efforts, they end up losing and the bad guys win. That doesn't really sit well with us. So when we get the stories and they make sense to us, they tend to work the best for us. Dreams are kind of different because they're so disjointed. There's a lot of symbolism. Sometimes it's not even the same symbolism. There could be different things going on. That's when it takes a little bit of interpretation. So hope you've got whatever it was written down and ready. So in order to interpret, one of the ways to do that, and it's one of the ways I learned, and I'm going to share it with you, is through association. Now, association it's whenever something reminds us of something, we associate, okay? We can think of, whatever it is. It could be a song, and that brings up a feeling in us. That feeling, because that song, we associate that with, a person in our lives or an event in our lives. So that's an association. When we think of an association, we think of the symbol, we think of whatever it is, and it's what does that actually mean to us? Now, how do we go about that? Well, I'm going to talk you through your whatever it is you've written down. Hope you've written something down anyway. Look at what you've written or whatever comes to mind, even if you're just thinking about it, that was in the dream, and just pick one thing that just might step out more than anything else. Okay, something that might maybe resonate with something with you. Just maybe it just comes off the page or whatever. Just a little bit more than anything else. Now, when you're looking at whatever it is you've written down, don't think too hard about it, but just write down the first thing that comes into your mind. Okay? So go ahead. Just the first thing comes into your mind. Now, whatever it is you've just written, look at that and write down the first thing that comes into your mind. And again, whatever it is you've just looked at, take a look at it and write down the first thing comes into your mind. Again, don't think too hard about it. Just the first thing that pops into your head. Now, you go on as far with this as you can. Now, I think that whenever you start having to think too hard about it, maybe you've gone far enough. But that's the association. It's the first thing comes into your head. You look at what you've written, and it's the first thing comes into your head. You go as far as you can, as many times as you want to, as you need to. But as I say, if you start thinking too much about it, you may well have gone too far, because you're having to actually pull things out of your mind. So it's the first thing that comes into your head. Whatever you're left with, if you have a look at that, whatever you're left with could be what that part of the dream represents. Now, by the way, it's only that part of the dream. It's not the whole dream. It's just that part of the dream, okay? It's just that. So I know I'm going to be looking back at comments later on. I would be interested if anybody has found anything. It'd be interesting to see if you come up with anything. But what you can do then, because again, that's only the one part of the dream, you can pick something else and you do the same. It's the first thing comes into your head, and then the first thing comes into your head. And again, you just keep going. You associate, if you will, you associate freely, but you don't try to wander too far. Again, once we do that, our imagination is kicking in. We're thinking too much about it. We might be giving meaning to things rather than just the first thing that comes up. When we're associating, we're taking just that one little part of the dream, and it could be a word, a phrase, it could be an item of furniture, the person who was there, whatever it is. And what we're doing is we're focusing on that. And then we're thinking, as I say, if the first thing comes into our head, and then following that process. Now, it might not necessarily... The thing, if we're thinking too hard about it, it might not necessarily give us the correct answer, but we might assume that it's right. Going back to what Jung was saying earlier about with humility and accepting that we might always be wrong. So we can maybe pick another part and then come back to that if we need to. But when you think about associations, again, I know I've talked you through that exercise, but if you want to try this for your next bit, when you think of an association, someone might dream of a dog. Now, If I was dreaming of a dog, my interpretation would be very different from yours because a dog would mean something different to me. For one person, a dog might mean loyalty. For another person, it might mean friendship. For another person, it might mean danger, because maybe they don't like dogs, they're afraid of dogs. So that whenever you're interpreting your dreams, it's what these things mean to you. Okay. There's a lot of well-meaning people out there will tell you that they will interpret your dream for you. Well, I don't think they can. I think what they can do is they could help you. A lot of really good people out there could help you interpret your dream by helping you to uncover what these certain things mean. Also looking at the other things that might be going on in your life, maybe at the moment, or maybe have been going on for quite a while. Because there is a school of thought that believes that whenever we dream, we're either dreaming of something that is going on right here and right now that we maybe need to uncover, something we need to think about, we need to process, something we need to do something about, but we might not necessarily know how. There's another school of thought, and I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong. I think there's room for everything. Whenever we dream, we're dreaming about something from our past that is still having an impact on the here and now, something that is holding us back, something that is inhibiting us. Nearly got that word right. Inhibiting us somehow. So when you're associating, it is your interpretation. Okay. There's not necessarily a right or a wrong answer. Okay. It's really what it means to you. Okay. And when you're associating, as I say, you go as far as you can. You don't necessarily push it too hard because maybe, again, you're trying to give it a meaning as opposed to the first thing that pops into your head. So you do that with one bit, then you do it with another bit. All the things that you've written down, the things that you can remember. Do it with as many as you can. Do them with them all if you want. You might even find that other things might pop into your head, aspects of the dreams that you suddenly remember that you might not have remembered. The more you start to use the association technique, other parts of the dream might suddenly come to the fore. When you've done all your association on all the various different parts, you look to, if you will, connect the details, because they're probably going to be connected somehow. It's all part of the one story, the one narrative within that dream, even though it does seem quite disjointed and things don't make sense. You start to connect the details. You maybe analyze some of the metaphors that were there. You look for exaggeration. For instance, sometimes we dream it's like we're trying to run but we can't move. We feel as if we're stuck in thick mud or something. So our movement, or we see someone else and they're moving far too quickly, they're very fast. So we look for the exaggerations as well. We look for differences. As I say, we could be dreaming about somewhere we used to be, school, a workplace, a house we used to live in, whatever, but we look for the things that are different. Again, furniture might be different. There might be a different picture on the wall, different wallpaper, things like that. So we look for the differences, and these are the things that we explore to maybe see what's really going on. And we interpret it a piece at a time, just a little piece at a time. Okay. And then when we've done that, as I say, we try to put it together. We try to put it together, but maybe in the context of something we're struggling with, something we're dealing with, or something we've been experiencing. It doesn't always have to be something we're struggling with, but maybe something we're going through. And maybe that can help us give a little bit of insight. The thing about our dreams, I think they're an ongoing process as well. I'm going to paraphrase Carl Jung when I say this, because I can't remember the exact quote. But he says that just when we think we've got our dreams figured out, we don't, because there's more to learn. Okay, so it's an ongoing process. As I said earlier, if you're anything like me, you get up in the mornings, you cannot remember your dreams by the time you reach the bathroom. So if you want to get into the habit, if dreams are something you want to look at a bit more, maybe record your dreams when you get up. Write down as much as you can remember in a little diary or whatever. Practice associating. To get into that habit as well, just practice associating. Again, a song comes on the radio. Maybe you like the song. It was a song that you remember from being at school. What does that song remind you of? What is the association there? Or you're going past somewhere, you see something, somebody says something. You think of the association. What do those things remind you of? And again, you push too hard, we're probably thinking too much about it. It's just the first thing pops into your head. So practice those little things. Remember that our dreams, let's summarize this, our dreams speak with symbolism, and it's a symbolism that not all of us can interpret straight away. They require maybe a little bit of analysis. Now, can be easier if you have someone who does understand dreams and can help you, but not necessarily do it for you. I think that's maybe, I dreamt about, biscuits last night. Oh, well, clearly it means you're whatever. No, not at all. Someone who can help you to figure out what's going on. So that's really, really a very, very quick, in a nutshell, about dreams, what they can represent, what they're going through, looking at the different archetypes, how we recognize different things, the associations we have with some of these archetypes. A shield could mean defense, a sword might mean attack, danger, things like that. And how we recognize them, how we recognize these archetypes in our stories. As I said, if you look at Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, The Lion King, they're all pretty much the same archetypes. And I wouldn't say the same story, but variations on the same story. And we all recognize them. I think it's a really interesting field. I just wish I could go more in depth into it. But that little exercise about recording your dreams, writing down as much as you can remember, and then going through each piece at a time using the association just to see what you come up with. I would be interested. I'm going to have a look at some of the comments just to see. Has anyone found anything useful, or anyone... didn't say hi. Well, that's okay. Record Hound, you said now. So hi, so hi from you. Hello, Shirley. Adam says, one time when I was seeing dream, it's like real life. I believe it's not a dream. We can have very vivid dreams. Some people do have very, very vivid dreams, and don't really realize they're dreaming until they wake up. Some people, they kind of drift in and out, maybe, and they realize they're dreaming. They know it's a dream. Some people do lucid dreaming. Now, the thing about lucid dreaming, I think I tried it once. I don't have the mind to be able to concentrate long enough to be able to do it. But lucid dreaming is when someone can have control over their dreams. So they know they're dreaming. They know they're in a dream. There's different meditations out there. There's podcasts, YouTube videos. People put them up. It's like a guided meditation. You follow that, and I think there could be something quite useful, quite powerful about that. But the thing is, if you are in control of the dream and you are controlling that narrative as such, I don't think you're going to gain as much from it as the free kind of, I don't know, is it through free thinking, would you call it? The free kind of dreaming that happens sort of spontaneously, if you will. But there are different kinds of dreaming, as I say. What else? Why are we seeing dreams? Why is our brain still working when we're asleep? My best answer, which is probably not the right answer, but the best answer is whenever we're dreaming, we go through different things like REM sleep. Okay, so our mind is kind of active. According to people like Jung, people like Freud, whenever we dream, we're communicating with ourselves. We're communicating with ourselves. As I say, there's something we're going through, or something we need to figure out, something we have to learn. Again, could be something from our past which is still impacting on the here and now. And when we're dreaming, we're communicating to ourselves in a way symbolically. We're doing it, if you will, our ego's down, our unconscious is maybe coming to the surface, but it's coming out in our dreams. There's probably a better way of answering that, but that would be my answer. Recurring dreams started in childhood, completely different places each time. At almost 50, sporadically get them. Um, just something on that record, Hound. I would have a recurring dream as well. I had it most of my life, and it's just like you described. It's in different places and different situations. I found the older I've getting, the more I've understood it. I do still have it, but less and less. When I say I had it regularly, I couldn't even tell you how regularly because I don't always recall my dreams, but they would be the dreams I would often remember. Recently, in the past few years anyway, that dream is diminishing. It's not quite the same thing. It's like it's still there, but it's not as often and it's not as intense. And there seems to be a resolution, if you know what I mean. So maybe there's something going on in my psyche. Um, would anybody be interested in hearing about my recurring dream? I don't know. Should I share it? um, but yeah, a recurring theme in the dreams is usually um, a result of something that is continually happening, or perhaps something we need to do. It is something that is ongoing with us. Two people have already said yes, share. Okay, I would have had a dream now. As I say, it was the same thing, but there were different situations. Sometimes I would dream and I would have a gun, but it would be in pieces. It was like it was broken. Or I would have a car, the steering wheel was broken. The steering wheel wasn't attached. I would always have something, but whatever it was didn't work right. It was in pieces. It was broken. It was like at half power. It wasn't fully charged. There was something going on. In my dream analysis, many of the situations I have found myself in, I was more than enough to be able to deal with it, but for some reason I doubted myself and I held back. It's like I didn't trust myself. I was second guessing myself. I didn't have the confidence, or I feared whatever it would be would make things worse. So that would have been the recurring dream. I would always have a piece of equipment. I would have something, but whatever it was either broken or it wasn't working. Yeah, I had the skill set. I knew what to do, whatever it was, but for some reason I was always holding myself back. I remember my therapist telling me at the time, thank God for honest therapists. My therapist telling me at the time, it's like I sometimes go into things. I go into battle with one hand tied behind my back, and I'm the one who's tied it, you know. So yeah. So that was my recurring dream. But yeah, the recurring dream is something that's ongoing. It's something that maybe we keep doing, or something we keep coming up against, or whatever it is, something's not working for us. Some medications can cause you to have crazy dreams. Can you unleash dreams in the same way? I am not an expert on medication. I'm not sure if you could. I'm not sure. I think some medication, it's not medication as such, but I took nicotine replacement, like the patches, when I was quitting smoking many years ago. And they didn't give me crazy dreams, but they did make the dreams a lot more lucid for some reason, and I don't know why. I did speak to my doctor at the time, and he just went, "Yeah, they'll do that." So, okay, well, that's helpful. So I think depending on the medication or whatever it is we're doing, sometimes our dreams can be a bit more lucid. In other words, we remember them a lot more. Other times, again, depending on what it is, I wouldn't know enough about drugs or medication to be able to answer that question, at least honestly, anyway. So I'm sorry about that. Purpose of REM sleep. Hello, Polly. Purpose of REM sleep is a mystery. People can manage without it. Lots of antidepressants suppress that stage. Could be side effects. Yeah, some medications might have side effects. The suppressed part of us. The REM part of our sleep, as I say, that's whenever we are dreaming. We get into like a deep sleep, and that's when people like Freud and Jung would have said our unconscious comes to the surface, but it comes to the surface while we're unconscious. I have a note somewhere because I did make a note somewhere. What was it Freud had said? Something I would share with you if I can find it. You wouldn't believe the state of my office, by the way. You only get to see this bit. Yeah, he would have said that dreams are often, they often represent unfulfilled wishes, difficult experiences, or unresolved conflicts. And whenever we're dreaming, they're coming from our unconscious into our sleep state. They're coming through that way in a way that isn't going to distress us. Now, again, yes, we do have nightmares and things like that. But as I said earlier, our dreams cannot harm us. They might bring up emotional distress, but we can't be physically harmed. So yeah, the sleep, that, if you will, our defense mechanisms are down, our ego is down, all that sort of thing. So these things come into our mind usually while we're sleeping. I can control my dreams, but seconds is not enough to do what I want to do. Well, as I said, there is the lucid dreaming. There's meditations out there. People will talk you through a guided meditation if you want to have the kind of dream where you are in control of it. I tried it. I don't have the concentration for it. My mind jumps all over the place. I find it very hard to listen to guided meditations. Just the way my head works, which is sometimes why I find association difficult, because my mind jumps all over the place. That's why I said earlier, practice it. Okay. What about dream? Feel deja vu. Deja vu is a very strange concept. Yeah, it's like we do something and it reminds us of something. What's the movie? Science fiction movie. What is it? Can't remember. Oh, yeah, Matrix. Yeah, deja vu is a glitch in the system. That's what they said. I think, personally, I'll just tell you what I think. And again, this is just what I think. I could well be wrong. I think deja vu is something reminds us of something. And that it might not be the same thing, but it's something maybe we've experienced before. And again, it could be an association, and it just comes out of our unconscious that we are reminded of something we've seen or heard or done before. And it just happens for a brief moment. When's it go? Oh, my wife said the patches give you vivid dreams too. Good. I'm glad it's not just me. But as I said, when I told my doctor about it, he just went, "Yeah, they'll do that." Again, it's not really the answer. I would have liked a bit more than that, but well, that's good. Yeah, I'm glad that I'm not the only one experienced that. The undiscovered room theme seems not uncommon then. Yeah. Again, archetypes are common examples. It's just an archetype is just another word for a common example. Obi-Wan Kenobi is a common example of the older wizard type man who trains the young person, just like Gandalf and Frodo, or Mickey and Rocky. We recognize these archetypes, these common examples. DJ Rustler. I used to have a recurring dream when I was young, where it was just black, couldn't see anything. But it was the feeling of fear, anxiety, and the feeling of being crushed. I think it was being born. Not saying you're right, not saying you're wrong. As much as you can remember about it, maybe try that process just to see what you learn. As much as you can remember, and using the associations, what comes up for you, the first thing comes into your head. Elevator rides went sideways in my dreams. That's one about dreams being kind of crazy and disjointed. They don't make sense. We don't understand how or why something works the way it does, or in real life, in the dream, it's almost like it's, yeah, it is what it is. But in real life, as we start to wake up and we start to realize there's something quite weird about it. And it's if you think of the elevator going sideways, what does that actually represent to you? What does that mean? What does an elevator mean? What do elevators do? And the fact that it goes sideways, what does that bring up in you? Again, using the association. Not read about Freud and dreaming. Let's put it onto your list. Yeah, he does have a book. I had the book. I've loaned it to someone. I've no idea who, which means I'll probably never see it again. But I had his book on dreams. It is a bit of a hard read, but it's very insightful. It's very good. It's very interesting. 7-6 clear. Fascinating, similar theme, if you will, to mine. Be stuck in a certain building, except that it was in ruins. Couldn't have possibly been stuck there as there were no walls. I'm not going to try and interpret that for you, but what I am going to say is, I'm not sure if it's an archetype, but what I would say is there is something to be said about being in a prison of, it's like being in a prison with no bars and no door. We're in a prison. We feel as if we're stuck. We feel as if we're in a prison, but we're not really. We can get out. There is something. There is something that holds us back, something that keeps us stuck. Now, again, I'm not saying that's the interpretation of your dream, but I'm just saying it's not uncommon. Yeah, it's like a prison without bars, without doors and things like that, and yet for some reason we're still stuck. Melatonin supplements make for vivid dreams. Okay, so melatonin supplements and nicotine patches. There's 2 on the list so far. Okay. I have dreams where I'm lost, no phone, no wallet. Car turns into a bike with a wonky wheel. I steal a lot from desperation in dreams, not in real life. Yeah, so if that's a recurring lioness, if that's a recurring dream, yeah, maybe there's something to uncover there, something to unpack there. You think of the things we need. I mean, first of all, our phone. What does your phone mean to you? What does that represent? No wallet. So what do you keep in your wallet? Why is that important? What's in that? What do we need our wallets for? The car turns into a bike. Okay, all of a sudden it's downsized. It's not the same as it was. The wheel's wonky. So again, just like me having the dream with a car with the steering wheel come off it and stuff like that. Yeah, it's having the equipment, but it's not quite working. So yeah, you think about what's going on there. Well, it was nicotine patches. I used to put patches on my arm when I was trying to quit smoking. It gives you a little nicotine hit. If you're interested in articles you want to read from Mr. Darren, just Darren, I'm not that formal. I'll share the link in here. Hope it can work. Please support him. Oh, it's very kind of you. Yeah. Yeah, just on that, I was going to say, maybe I should mention this as come towards the end. What I'm doing in the future is I'm trying to do different things. I've started a Substack account where what I hope to be doing is putting out little articles and things, but I'm also going to be putting the transcripts from a lot of my videos because it's been asked for a couple of times by some people. I'm going to put the transcripts from the videos onto the Substack so that people can read. Now, it is free. You don't have to pay for it. If anybody wants to subscribe and pay me £3 a month, I'm happy to take your money. I'd be glad of it. But you don't have to. It is free. Just subscribe. And so the information will be there. So the stuff in the videos is still going to be there, but it'll be in written form as well. You'll get the text if you think it would be helpful. What I'm going to do, and it's going to take me a bit of time, so you'll have to be patient with me. Stuff in the live streams I've done, stuff like looking at our shadow self, understanding, managing our triggers, managing boundaries, having difficult conversations. I'm going to not just do the transcriptions of those, but I'm going to put them into bullet points so that they're easier to understand. You don't have to read whole paragraphs of things. I'm trying to create resources that people would find useful, would find helpful, without me waffling on too much about it. So yeah, that will be on Substack. Okay, and that will be under my name. You'll find my name there. If you go on the Substack, look for my name, you'll find the stuff there. There's a couple of things there already. The other thing I'm going to do, and this is going to take a bit more effort, one of the things I was hoping to do is to turn what I'm doing on YouTube, to turn that into a podcast. So you don't necessarily have to just sit and watch me on YouTube. I'm going to, I'll either be converting some of the stuff into an audio, or I will be re-recording it, maybe adding a bit more to it, updating some things, hopefully get a few guests on that I can talk with, people who know more about certain information that I have. So I'll be turning that into a podcast. That's in the making, if you know what I mean. It's not something I can do immediately. So yeah, there are the two things that I'll be doing. So there's the Substack with the written stuff. I will try to turn that into stuff that you could find useful. You could take away, print out, do whatever you need with it. There will be the podcast, so you can, you know, if you want to do what I do, you put your earphones in while you're hoovering the stairs or whatever, you know, stuff like that. You don't have to just sit in front of the screen listening to me. You don't have to look at me either. Just listen to my dulcet tones. The other thing is I'm going to create a website. I know I have a website at the moment, but I'm going to create another website where I'm trying to put everything on the one place. So there will be hopefully worksheets, links to other things, other people groups that can help. Things that I can't offer, unfortunately, because I don't have the time, I don't have the resources, but I'm hoping that people, you know, that can would be kind enough to let me put links to them on my stuff. So that's going to be in the next while. Someone had mentioned about creating a membership, and it's something I had been thinking of doing. Creating a membership for the channel, but the only thing about creating a membership for the channel, the thing that stopped me doing it was I couldn't really. It's like I have a Patreon, but the only thing I can offer people on Patreon is they get my videos about a day or two earlier than everybody else. And that's all that's as much as I can do because I'm so limited for time and resources. What stopped me from creating a membership was I couldn't really do any more than I'm already doing. So I didn't think it's fair to, you know, ask people to start giving me money for things I couldn't, you know, they're not getting any extra that I'm all doing. What someone had suggested was, yeah, you know, to go ahead and create a membership anyway. So you can still do things like live streams, but it might be a bit smaller, it'd be more intimate. You can answer questions and so on. Also, whenever something comes up, the thing about getting so many comments is it's very hard for me to answer and to read, never mind answer everything that comes up. And sometimes I do feel guilty. I mean, I find myself recently, I'm answering questions that were asked about 3 months ago. I'll never be brilliant at this. But something like a membership would mean that would come up straight away. I would get an immediate notification, and I would be able to give priority to answering those. Now, I'm not going to rule that out. I might do it, but I'll see what people think anyway. But anyway, yeah, there are the three things, as I say. So thank you very much. Who was it? It was Adam. Yeah, you mentioned about the link. So yeah, there's the Substack where there's the articles, the videos, which you've already seen, but there's the transcripts. There will be more added to that. As I say, because I'll take the stuff from the live streams and I will turn them into bullet point ideas so that they're easier for people to understand. There will be the website, which everything will be in the one place, and that will take you to wherever it is you want. All of it, and the podcast. That's the thing I would be hoping to do. All of this is going to take a bit of time, so I'm going to ask you to be very patient with me. Okay. On my way, Obi-Wan. Yeah, Obi-Wan's the perfect archetype. Well, not the perfect one. Gandalf as well. Yeah. So what else have we got? Hit the nail on the head. Climb, do videos, 2 recurring dreams. Climbing a ladder, a really high ladder that's extremely high up. Dizzy and afraid I'm going to fall. One where I'm being attacked by a cat. Okay, again, see when it comes to the association and you think of, you know, you think of the ladder, what do you notice about the ladder? What is it you're actually climbing? Is it against a wall? Is it against a tree? Is it just vertical? It's not against anything. You know, you think of what kind of cat? Little house cat? What color is it? Is it a black cat, a white cat, stripy cat, and tabby cat, whatever they call them? You know, you think of the different, you think of those different things. You pay attention to those things and you do your association that way.
Theme is on long trips, trying to get home. Home is usually a crumbling structure in an impossible place. Stay asleep, it might make it where I'm okay. Thanks, Adam. Thank you. Do I offer private therapy? I am a full-time therapist. Unfortunately, well, first of all, I'm fully I'm at capacity. Therapy work is starting to decrease. I'm starting to have to wind down therapy, and it's for different reasons. Not that I don't like seeing people. I do. I love the work I do. There's different things going on, which I might share at another time. But my availability is greatly restricted now. Doesn't mean I'd give it up entirely, because it is my passion. I think people are absolutely fascinating. You learn so much from people. People are just, I don't know, people are so fascinating, and most of them don't even know it. That's the amazing thing. You like my waffling? That's okay. Well, thank you for that. YouTube's video sounds pretty quality. Just convert sound and upload. Yeah, I could do that. Yeah. Some of them I would need to update. I've learned new information since. I've done a bit more research. There's more I could add. There are some videos I have put out and I have been wrong. I've been mistaken. I've mispronounced certain things, and I've got I've made an error or two, shall we say. And I'm not too big-headed to admit that. So if I was to do that, I would maybe re-record them anyway, and I would fix the things that I was wrong about. Where did the TARDIS go? TARDIS is still right behind me. It's in my cabinet over there. See, and my picture is still up there. I think it's behind my head. Yeah, there we go. My little TARDIS. Yeah. Recurring, I'm on a bus. Don't recognize anything out of the window. Ask the bus driver where I am. He won't respond. Make a decision where to get off, and then the dream ends. Linda, that's quite a yeah. When you're thinking of the bus, again, you think of maybe, the seats. Are there other people on the bus? What's the bus driver wearing? What color is the bus? Is it a big red bus, like a London bus? Is it like an American bus, like one of those yellow school bus type things? What kind of a bus? Is it a double-decker bus? Try and pay attention to much is going on. What are you wearing? What are you saying? What's the floor like? What can you see if you look outside the window? As much detail as you can put in. Okay. Planning another philosophy love stream. What do you mean another one? Live stream. Love stream. You think you're on the wrong channel, but people don't come to me for dating advice, that's for sure. Yeah, I like I didn't think I would take to the live streams as much as I did. Now, there are some things I can talk very passionately about because I know all the information. There's other things I will just share what information I have and give my thoughts. Like tonight, I think tonight is a fascinating subject. I don't know everything about it. In fact, maybe a lot of psychodynamic people out there who do dream analysis might even say that I'm in error in some of the things I'm saying, and that's perfectly okay because I do get things wrong. I would like to know more about it. It is something I would like to learn a bit more about, but I would really be doing it for my own benefit. As I say, read a bit more on Jung, a bit more on Freud, things like that, and look at the different techniques. Just the technique I use is the association. Okay. You're improving your English. Don't worry, so am I. I'm not the most articulate. Give the most perfect description of narcissistic fathers. One of your videos. Thank you. Yeah, videos on narcissism are fantastic. I find it curious that most of the questions I get are about narcissism. I know it seems to be the topic of the decade, if you will, probably more than that. There is something I have been working on, and it's taken me forever because there's more and more coming out, and it's a question that's been asked probably about 2 years ago, and that's about the rise in narcissism. And I have been looking to put something together on that. I think narcissism, is there a rise in it, or it's just that we're more aware of it? Does social media have an impact on that? I think what we see are a rise, and this is something I'm going to put. I will put in the research. I try to put the research into the stuff I'm talking about. Personally, I think what we see are a rise in narcissistic behaviors and qualities, not necessarily narcissistic personality. I think that's something very, very different. I think sometimes what we see is because you might have someone who behaves, say, on Twitter or X or whatever they call it now, or Facebook, and they behave in a certain way. They don't behave like that in real life. They're not vitriolic. They're not, they don't behave like a troll. They're not horrible. You probably find they're, quite nice in real life. So there can be different things going on. You can also have, and I'm not sure if this is the right term, but what I would call situational narcissism. I think that is the term, but it's what I call it anyway. Situational narcissism, and that's when someone can behave very selfishly, very guardedly. They can be very disagreeable, but it's only in a certain situation. It might be, for instance, in the workplace. Maybe their job requires it. It could just be in a specific relationship. I know that one of the things with narcissism is like they have a private face, but they also have a public face. We see something more manipulative there. But then there is that thing, as I say, about situational narcissism, where the narcissistic traits maybe come out more to the fore. So it's a topic that I think it seems very fluidic. I don't think there's a one kind of answer is going to fit it all, but it is something I'm very fascinated about. I also think more in terms of it's not just narcissism we're looking at things that are maybe comorbid with other stuff going on. More and more I talk more about dark personality types, so there's a little bit of psychopathy, a little bit of Machiavellianism. I think more and more that's what we might be seeing. Not enough for maybe a diagnosis for some kind of disorder, but still very, very strong ingrained traits. So I don't even know how I got onto this. It's told you that's how my mind wanders. Yeah, but most of the questions I get are about narcissism. Which is probably why the majority of my videos are about narcissism. Most of the views I get are on the videos about narcissism. If you find them interesting, if you find them helpful, and I'm glad of that, I really do. I wouldn't be asking for suggestions, and I wouldn't be making them otherwise. So if you find them helpful, so much the better. I'm glad of that. I appreciate that. Your live streams help our overall love streams. Thank you. Need help in our US too. My accent, my accent, it's a Northern Ireland accent. I'm originally from Belfast. I live just outside Belfast now. Some people don't fully understand my accent. Maybe they think this. Sometimes people think I'm Scottish, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. There is a little bit of in the northern part of Ireland. There you do get like a mix of English and Scots because of the traffic back and forward over the centuries. So the accent has maybe changed a bit, but not everybody understands my accent, which is why I try to put subtitles up in as many of the videos as I can, so that people can see what I'm saying, or hear what I'm saying, rather. Where are we? Wouldn't prefer to watch the same subject, learning different things. It's good. I like talking about different things. I don't mind talking about narcissism. I think narcissism is, albeit it's the topic of the decade, I think it is a very interesting subject. It's like anything else. It's not a one size fits all, and not everything is a disorder. It's like everybody experiences anxiety, but not everybody has an anxiety disorder. We all avoid things that are painful and difficult, but we don't all have avoidant personality. Narcissism is the same. We all have an innate, normal kind of healthy level, which is our own self-interest and so on. But we're able to balance that. We're able to balance that looking at the impact we have on others. We have empathy, we have compassion, and so on. So you have people with maybe very strong traits, but it's not quite a disorder. You have people with very low level traits, and it's normal. It gets them what they need. It gets them through life. It helps them succeed. And then you get people who are, it's if you think of the word disorder, that's the key word. The disorder is how that impacts their day-to-day functioning, how that impacts their relationship with other people as well as their relationship with themselves. So there's many different levels. So it's like a spectrum, as I say, or some people call it a continuum. I think of it as a spectrum, in the sense that different colors, different shades, different intensities, and different mixtures. Something about Ulster in your accent. Yes, Northern Ireland. I'm part of which is in Ulster, or at least 6 of the 8 counties anyway, if you want to think about it on an island-wide scale. Yeah, it's an Ulster accent, yeah. Find my way with nature and virtue. I made sense of the massive jumbled narcissism info I already knew. No, it's well, I'm glad you find it. Glad you find it helpful. Yeah, makes it rewarding. Your accent is very similar to Eamon Holmes, but that's the only similarity. Thank goodness. Yeah, Eamon Holmes. Yeah, we're from the same part of the world. It's funny. I did a video, one of the, wouldn't say the first ones, but within my first year of doing YouTube, I did a video on the program The Fall, and the villain in that, Paul Spector. And I generally, I've made it a rule before I started this. I'm not going to be analyzing people. I'm not going, because first of all, I can't. I'm not going to be diagnosing people because I can't. I talk about behaviors, characteristics, and so on, and I'm not going to talk about real people, because when it comes to real people, it doesn't matter what my opinion of them might be. There are people around them who might be hurt or offended, who I've got nothing to do with it. So I made it a rule I would not be talking about it. But doesn't mean I can't talk about fictional characters. So I talked about this guy, Paul Spector, who is from that program, The Fall. If you haven't watched it, it's a bit grim, but it's quite a good watch. Gillian Anderson's in it. If you like Gillian Anderson, I do. If you like Gillian Anderson, she's in it. Someone commented on that they could tell from my accent, this thing about the actor that plays Jimmy Dornan, the actor that plays him, he's from the same part of the world as me. I think he was probably born about 20 miles from where I grew up, and people thought that his accent was false, because they were comparing it to mine. And I thought that was quite funny. He's an actor. You can tell people can't do that accent. I'm thinking, but that is his accent. That's his real accent. I just thought that was quite funny. Let me see. Thanks, your accent, mysterious me. I liked it up years ago. Learn about that as well as narcissism. Acquired taste. That's an interesting name, acquired taste. Yeah. And where we are. Faraya, I hope I've pronounced your name right, Faraya. All secrets I shared with my wife are now being used to shame with friends and family. And that's something that happens. Been used to embarrass and shame. I think some people, I'm not suggesting your wife's like this. I've never met your wife, so it's not for me to say. I think sometimes what people do is they target things like our guilt and our shame. It's a common term that I've sometimes used in the videos about guilt tripping and so on. It's one of the things they do. We're trying to avoid guilt and shame, so they target things like our conscience, guilt, and our shame, and also our fear of public opinion. I don't think there's an easy way out. There's no quick one answer that's going to solve anything. What I would say is when we learn things like responsibility for ourselves, we take responsibility for ourselves. And sometimes that means, and ownership of ourselves. And that means sometimes having to sit in our discomfort. We have to sit in our embarrassment. That's not a nice thing. It's not a pleasant thing. If we can avoid it, so much the better. But when we learn that kind of resilience to be able to do things like that, it kind of takes the edge off what other people do to try and embarrass us. We have more agency, more autonomy than we give ourselves credit for. I often say this is why I find human beings to be inherently fascinating. Something I have to remind myself of, because I'm human too. We have more courage, resilience. We have more going for us. We are more resourceful than sometimes we think we are. Okay. Great voice for easy listening. You haven't heard me sing. Okay. Get rid of the need for external validation without becoming self-righteous, instrumental. Yeah. Validation is an important thing. It's when we believe we are dependent on it. I think sometimes we need to feel validated just for the sake of feeling seen. The example I use is you fall over and you break your leg and you're lying there screaming, "This really hurts." Someone looks at you and says, "No, it doesn't." I mean, how the hell do they know? We at least want some kind of validation that, yes, this is sore, But when we are dependent on other people's validation, I mean, a key characteristic of narcissism is the need for constant validation. I'm unique, I'm special, I'm wonderful, I'm all powerful, I'm drop dead gorgeous, I'm super intelligent, I'm the most virtuous. And it's like they need this audience to tell them, yes, that's exactly what you are. We all need some kind of validation on some level, but we can't self-validate. Don't forget, we can self-validate. If you fall and break your leg, it's your leg. You don't need someone to tell you it's sore. You already know. This thing about self-validation, it's something I talk to people about. People worry about, again, other people's opinions. They don't believe me, they believe that person. Well, what I remind them of is, but you're a witness, they're not. Okay, you're the witness. You were there, you saw it, you heard it, you felt it, you experienced it. No one telling you they don't believe you changes any of that. It doesn't feel good. We would like to have some kind of validation, but we can validate ourselves. There's something very powerful about being a witness. No one can take that away from you. And okay, I'm just aware of the time. So I hope that's not make you believe they're dependent on their permissions. Yeah. I often say that one of the ways things like trauma bonding works, and trying to make someone dependent, is when someone can, whether this is a conscious process or a deliberate process, I don't know, it depends on the person and the situation. It's when someone leads you to believe that they can do something you can't, that they have something you need, and they can give you something that no one else can. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that leads to those very toxic cycles of abuse and manipulation and so on, and being led to believe certain things. I'm the only person who can validate you. What, really? Seriously? But we don't see that at the time, unfortunately. So, could you talk about nightmares? What I will do, I'm going to have to be very brief. Nightmares are just like our dreams. They're very, very disturbing. They're very uncomfortable. They can bring up a lot in us. But again, the things in the nightmares, we can do the same. We can go through the same process as much as we can remember. We take each little bit. We start with a bit that maybe steps out the most at us. That means it resonates the most. We go through that. We go through the association. We can do it the same way now. It might bring up a lot in us. It might even distress us as we're doing it, but remember, this is just something that might feel unpleasant, and it's just on paper. Our dreams can't hurt us. If someone shoots you in your dream, you don't wake up with a bullet wound in you. It could be the same process. As I say, it's going through that process of association to try to uncover what the dream means, what the nightmare means, what's going on in the nightmare. There could be something going on in the nightmare that is, causing you a lot of distress. It's causing you a lot of fear, causing you a lot of pain, but it could be something that maybe you have to work through. It could be something you have to understand. It could be going back to the archetypes. An archetype, if you think of a monster in legends, are things like dragons, things like that, leviathans, things like that. They represent something as well. They maybe guard a treasure of some kind, so we either have to destroy that in order to get to the treasure, whatever that happens to be, or in some cases, what we do is we take the monster, we have to train it and make it work for us. There's lots of different ways of looking at the archetypes, and legends, movies, myths, fairy stories, and so on are riddled full of archetypes. Okay. To reawaken dreaming after trauma. Yeah, thinking about dreaming after trauma. Sometimes when we dream, we might dream about the things that have happened to us. We might dream about certain situations. I think sometimes, we have a recurring dream of the things that we've seen. Sometimes we fear dreaming because we might have a bad dream. I think what's different sometimes, and I'm not saying this is what you're doing, but sometimes we confuse something like a dream with a flashback. And a flashback is like we're reliving something. We have that very intrusive memory of something, and it keeps coming up. I wouldn't be an expert when it comes to this, but what I would say is you look at maybe things like your sleep hygiene. If it requires you to maybe, again, it's maybe talking to your GP, something that might help you to be able to sleep. When we have dreams, we dream, and maybe the dream is unfinished. Maybe the dream is not, we're left hanging. We're not quite sure what the hell that was about. What you can do, you can take control of the dream when you are awake. Why not? You're having your cup of coffee, whatever. You're sitting in the evening. You've just come home from work. Whatever you can remember about the dream, use your imagination and allow the dream to finish. You're wide awake. Again, it would be a bit like lucid dreaming, where you're in control of the dream, but you're not actually dreaming. You're just thinking about what the resolution to the dream would be. So, if you're struggling with dreaming, you're giving yourself permission. Well, why not have some, if you will, daydream? I like this phrase. This is not my phrase. It's someone else's phrase. Friend from a few years ago said this to me. Be the hero of your own story. It's your dream. It's your imagination. Use it whatever way you want. The dream could have been very scary. It could have been very frightening. Just use your imagination and be the hero of your own story. In your dream, you can do anything. Put your hand up, say that far, no further. Whatever it is you want. Take the sword, slay the dragon. Whatever it is, use your imagination. Take that sense of control. So I'm aware of the time. I'm a bit later than usual. I didn't think I'd be as long tonight. But I hope you found that interesting. What I will do is when I put the description up, I'll put a few links to Freud's book, Freud's work on dreams. I'll put some stuff on, Jung's work on archetypes, his rules for dreaming, the 12 rules for dreaming when it comes to interpreting them. I'll put a little bit up on the archetypes. So hopefully you'll find something useful. And if you want to continue with this, by all means, and if you want to try that process of association, in the comment box below the live stream at some point, just put away note. You don't go into detail, don't share anything that you don't want to share, but just let me know if you tried it and if you found it helpful or not. I'm always interested to see do people find any of this stuff interesting? Do they find it helpful? So that's me for this evening. I do appreciate you all joining me. Thank you very much. And as I say, you can find me on Substack, where I will be putting up the stuff that I mentioned over the next while. There will hopefully be a podcast coming up. If I do the membership thing, I will think of a way of tailoring it so that people do get something from it. And until next time, thanks for joining me, and take care, everybody. So bye now.